Hey everyone. So today's video will focus on configuring traffic via Docker Compose. So this tutorial is different from other traffic tutorials as I don't actually use any type of labels within my configurations. I only use one configuration file for all of my services, which in my opinion is the quickest and the easiest way to set up traffic to get it up and running within your self-hosted environment. I'll also be using Cloudflare DNS Challenge and Let's Encrypt for attaining SSL TLS certificates. So you should already have your own domain through Cloudflare. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so let's start off with the compose.yml file. For the image, I'm using the latest traffic official image. The security options is to ensure that the container and its processes cannot gain any additional privileges even if they try to execute a privileged operation. So we're using a network that we're calling traffic, and we'll create that externally before starting the container. For the ports, we're just exposing port 80 and 443, as this is, of course, a reverse proxy. For the environment variables, we only need two, the Cloudflare DNS API token and the traffic dashboard credentials. And I'll show you how to create both of those variables. For the volumes, we have three files that we need to create within the data directory. And that'll be the traefik.yml file, the acme.json, and then the config.yml. And then lastly, just the network configuration. External equals true. That just means that the network is going to be created externally. So before we can start the container, there's a few things that we need to do first. So let's create the traffic Docker network with this one command, sudo docker network create traffic. I think I already have it created. So yep, the network already exists. And then you'll also need to create the data directory. I already have it created right here. You can just do make dir data. So within the data directory, you need to create the following files, the acme.json, config.yml, and the traffic.yml. And you can just run the command touch acme, json, config, and traffic. So you can leave the acme.json empty. That's going to be um, filled up later. But for now, let's start with the traffic.yml file. So the traffic.yml file is traffic static configuration, meaning it defines the settings that traffic loads at the startup, and it's not changed dynamically. So we're going to briefly go over this file, the API configuration. This enables the dashboard. So we have our entry point configuration as well, which defines the ports that traffic will listen on. So we have 80 and 443. And then you have the providers section, which this is where traffic gets its routing rules. So whether it be from Docker, which that's how we have it set up here, you can do a file or even Kubernetes. For the certificate resolvers, this defines how traffic obtains SSL certificates. So in our case, we're using Cloudflare. So this is where you would enter in your email address for Cloudflare. And then for the certificate authority, right down here, or your CA. So you can choose between staging and production environment. You'll want to use the staging environment when you're first testing out traffic for the first time, so you don't reach the rate limit when testing your certificate issuance. But for this tutorial, I already done my testing. I'm just going to leave it at production. And then at the bottom of the file, I have my log configuration. And this is optional, but if you plan on using like CrowdSec with traffic, you'll at least want to have the access.log configuration. Moving on to the config.yml file. So this is the most important file. And this is also the reason why I'm not using labels within my traffic instance. All of my configurations for my services are done within this config.yml file. So it's broken down into three sections. You have the router section, the services section, and then you have the middleware section. So we're going to start with the router section first. This first block of code, this is just for the traffic dashboard. The next two is just two services I selected. Um, for both, I'm specifying the entry point to be HTTPS. For the rule, this is the domain configuration for the host. And just make sure that you add a DNS record for the domains in your respective DNS software to ensure that the domain resolves properly. And then for middlewares, so middlewares are components that modify requests before they reach a service or just responses before they're sent back to the client. So you can have middlewares that help with authentication, security, redirection, or request transformation. So both Vault Warding and Photo Prism, I'm using the middleware chain called primary. So a chain is a way to group multiple middlewares together into one. This just makes your config.yml file smaller if you're using multiple of the same middlewares for each service. And then the TLS configuration, this just enables it. And then the service specifies the name of the service configuration to use, which is the next section down. So the services section in a traffic configuration defines how traffic routes traffic to backend services. So each entry in this section specifies a load balancer, which directs incoming requests to the appropriate application. So for this configuration, I'm running both Vault Warning and PhotoPrism on the same Docker network as traffic, which is the Docker network that we created earlier. So with that, your URL will be the Docker container name for the service and the port that it runs on within the Docker container. So this is because in Docker, when containers are connected to the same network, they can communicate using their container names as host names. And this is just how Docker has a built-in DNS system that resolves container names within the same network. So for Vault Warden, I'm using port 80, so I don't need to specify the port. And for PhotoPrism, it's 2342. Moving on to the middleware section, I have some configuration for the default middlewares to use, the HTTPS redirect, as well as default headers. And then I have a whitelist configuration as well. So below, here's the primary chain I was talking about above. This just combines those two default middlewares into one group named primary. So I have the default headers and the HTTPS direct all wrapped up into one chain called primary. So now you'll need to create the .env file. I already have mine created. So within the .env file, you'll need to add two variables, the Cloudflare API token and the traffic dashboard credentials. So we'll start with getting the API token first from Cloudflare. So once you log into Cloudflare, you want to go over to your profile and then API tokens. Here you'll want to click Create Token. You'll choose Custom Token at the bottom, and then you'll fill out the name. And then for permissions, you'll choose Zone, Read, and then you'll add another permission for Zone, DNS, Edit. And then for zone resources, you want to include a specific zone being your domain, your root domain, and then you'll just click Continue to Summary, and then you'll click Create Token. And then once you create the token, you'll be able to copy the token, then you can paste it within the .env file. Now let's get the dashboard credential. And to do that, we'll be using a tool called htpassword. So if you don't have it installed, you can do this by running the command sudo app install apache 2 utils. I already have that installed. So once it's done being installed, then you can run the following command to generate the credential and paste it into your .env file. And you're just doing echo traffic dashboard credentials, HT password, and then you can change the admin, which will be the username, to whatever you want. So you'll just run this command. You'll create the password, type it in again, and then that should be it. That'll place this variable within the .env file. So now that we have that set up, we can finally start the container by running a sudo docker compose up -d. So it may take a few minutes for traffic to come up fully, but when it does come up, you'll be able to access the dashboard. All right, so now let's see if we can access the dashboard. All right, yes, we can access the dashboard now. If you go over to HTTP, this is where you can see the services that you have configured within your config.yml file. So we have the dashboard, because we also have Vault Warden as well as Photo Prism. And as you can also see, there's no errors. So let's just see if we can reach Photo Prism and Vault Warden now. I'm gonna try Photo Prism first. Okay, that pulls up, so we're good there. And then let's try Vault Warden. Now let's try Vault Warden. And we're good there. We can reach Vault Warden as well. So there you have it. An easy tutorial on how to set up traffic. I think, in my opinion, this is the easiest way to do it without labels. In my previous setups, I used to use labels, but when I was messing around with Docker Swarm, and I just had so many issues with dealing with labels for each of the compose.yml files. In my next video, I'll be integrating CrowdSec as well. So if you found this video helpful, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button for more tips and tips. If you have questions or you want to share your experience, please drop a comment below. I love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Until next time.